Join us now for a stroll down memory lane and see just what occurred in your favorite year, 1959. So make yourself comfortable and prepare to recall the real pictures of the good old days. Enjoy the flick.
The year 1959 brought new hopes of a turn for the better in the Cold War. It was a year of unprecedented travel, ceremonials, and consultations by the great power leaders. Vice President Nixon's free-swinging kitchen debate with Premier Khrushchev at the United States Fair in Moscow set the stage in more ways than one for Mr. K's tour of America. For a whirlwind 2 weeks, Khrushchev and his moods dominated the news, leaving no doubt of his toughness and his faith in the future of communism. The Berlin crisis he had provoked faded when he and President Eisenhower paved the way for summit talks. Relations between the Soviet and the free world took on a more amiable tone after the meeting at Camp David. But the underlying realities were unchanged, notably the Soviet drive to match American technology. It was a momentous year for the New World, beginning with the rise to power of Fidel Castro in Cuba. Castro and his bearded troops were joyously acclaimed following his incredible victory over Batista. But through the months that followed, the leftist course of his social reforms roused new opposition. Discontent spread through the Caribbean, and Castro lashed out at critics with courts martialed at home and furious denunciation of United States policies. At year's end, Cuba remained a scene of unrest.
Cubana sabe también pelear y ganar batallas en este campo.
In Havana's Sports Palace, the Castro regime's controversial showcase trials get underway before a turbulent throng of 18,000. Batista aide Major Sosa Blanco, charged with 200 murders, faces a military tribunal. 3 judges still wearing the revolutionaries' jungle battle dress. Says Blanco of the crowd, "I am in a Roman Colosseum." Hundreds of correspondents report the charges as the major is faced by his accusers. Much of the evidence is hearsay, but much more is direct and telling. 45 witnesses come forward to tell of acts of brutality and murder. Men, women, and children testified. "I was only following my orders," says Blanco. Emotions climb in the 9-hour trial as the testimony piles up. This woman charges Blanco murdered her husband. The decision is death. Later comes word the trials will continue, but not in the sports arena.
Laos, the strategic key to Southeast Asia's richest areas, was attacked by guerrilla forces from Communist Vietnam, a Chinese puppet state. Through the year, Communist China's growing mobilization and aggressiveness caused mounting concern. This was the background of President Eisenhower's historic 11-nation tour, from which he returned at year's end to a tremendous ovation in the nation's capital. Following Alaska, a jubilant Hawaii became the 50th state of the Union. The islands made their mark on the news, electing the first senator of Oriental descent, and closing out their first year as a state with a blazing volcanic display. American-built Sabre jets of the Spanish Air Force roar overhead in a display of precision stunt flying designed to show that Generalissimo Franco's pilots are keeping pace with the Jet A. A display of delayed action parachute jumping follows, with the birdmen trailing columns of smoke to mark their fall. Multiple leaps with the goal of hitting a pinpoint target on the ground as closely as possible. Of the Castellon Air Fiesta, a convincing show of preparedness by crack Spanish air commandos. Scenes of Vice President Nixon's tour of Poland and the popular enthusiasm that greeted him in many areas, despite lack of notice in the press of his schedule. Over 250,000 lined Nixon's route, overshadowing by far Poland's recent reception for Khrushchev. Dramatic and eloquent evidence of the popular temper here in what is comparatively the freest of the Iron Curtain countries, and where the demands on the Vice President's talents in tact and diplomacy were possibly the greatest of his entire tour. crowd of nearly 4,000 thronged the airport, including most of the White House staff and nearly every Republican congressman and senator. But there is no partisanship in Mr. Nixon's speech.
The people of the Soviet Union, and even more the people of Poland, who lost 1 out of 4 citizens in World War II, have suffered a great deal in wartime. And they desperately want peace.